How did Matthew Stafford go from being one of the most disrespected quarterbacks in NFL history to a Super Bowl champion? Was it his cannon arm, his relentless drive, or something deeper, his unshakable mental toughness? For over a decade, Stafford carried the weight of a struggling franchise on his shoulders, battling through broken bones, dislocated joints, and the crushing weight of Detroit's losing culture. Yet, through it all, he never broke. His journey from the depths of despair, where he was labeled a good but not great quarterback, to the pinnacle of NFL glory, is a masterclass in resilience. But what made Stafford different? What kept him going when so many others would have quit? This is the story of a quarterback who refused to give up. No matter the odds, a story of pain, perseverance, and ultimate triumph. Matthew Stafford's journey to NFL greatness didn't start on a football field. It began in the heart of Texas, where the game is more than just a sport, it's a way of life. Born in Tampa, Florida, Stafford's family eventually settled in Dallas, Texas, a city known for producing football legends. From an early age, Stafford was immersed in a culture that demanded toughness, grit, and an unrelenting work ethic. But even in a state where football is king, Stafford's path to success was far from easy. His early years were marked by challenges that would shape the resilience he's known for today. At Highland Park High School, Stafford quickly made a name for himself as one of the most talented quarterbacks in the nation. Under the guidance of legendary coach Randy Allen, Stafford led his team to a perfect season and a state championship, throwing for over 4,000 yards despite missing the first 3 games due to a knee injury. This early setback could have derailed his career, but instead, it became a defining moment. Stafford didn't just recover, he thrived, earning accolades like the 2005 AA Sports National Player of the Year and a spot on the Parade All-American team. But even with all the success, Stafford's journey was just beginning. Despite his high school dominance, Stafford's transition to college football at the University of Georgia was anything but smooth. As a true freshman, he became the first quarterback in over a decade to start immediately for the Bulldogs. But the pressure was immense. In his first season, Stafford threw 13 interceptions to just 7 touchdowns, leaving many to question whether his high school success was a fluke. It was a humbling experience, but one that taught Stafford a valuable lesson. Talent alone isn't enough. To succeed at the highest level, he would need to develop mental toughness. By his junior year, Stafford had transformed into one of the most promising quarterbacks in college football. He threw for over 3,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, leading Georgia to an 11-win season and a top 10 ranking. But even as he reestablished himself as a star, Stafford faced adversity. His team fell short of a national championship, and the weight of unmet expectations began to mount. Yet, through it all, Stafford remained steadfast. He didn't let the setbacks define him. Instead, he used them as fuel to push harder. This resilience would become the hallmark of his career. As Stafford declared for the 2009 NFL Draft, he carried with him not just the skills of a top-tier quarterback, but the mental fortitude of someone who had already overcome so much. Little did he know, the challenges he faced in high school and college were just a preview of what was to come. Drafted first overall by the Detroit Lions, Stafford was about to enter a franchise that had become synonymous with losing. But if there was one thing Stafford had learned by now, it was how to rise above adversity. And rise he would, but not without enduring some of the toughest moments of his life. What would it take for a young quarterback to survive in one of the most challenging environments in the NFL? How would Stafford's early struggles prepare him for the battles ahead? The answers lie in the heart of Detroit, where Stafford's journey from underdog to champion truly began. The Detroit Lions in 2009 were a franchise in shambles. Coming off the first winless season in NFL history, the team was a laughingstock, a symbol of futility in a league built on competition. For a rookie quarterback, this was the ultimate test of mental toughness. But for Matthew Stafford, it was an opportunity to prove himself. From the moment he stepped onto the field, Stafford showed flashes of brilliance. But it wasn't just his arm strength or accuracy that stood out. It was his unwavering determination to fight, no matter the odds. In his very first season, Stafford faced the kind of adversity that would break most players. Injuries plagued him early on, but it was in Week 11 against the Cleveland Browns that Stafford's resilience truly shone. With the game on the line and his team trailing, Stafford delivered a desperation pass to the end zone, only to be intercepted. But a rare defensive pass interference call gave the Lions one last chance. The problem? Stafford had just suffered a brutal hit, dislocating his non-throwing shoulder. Most quarterbacks would have been done for the day, but not Stafford. After briefly leaving the field, he returned, battered and bruised, to throw the game-winning touchdown. It was a moment that would define his career, a quarterback willing to sacrifice his body for the sake of his team. That game-winning drive wasn't just a highlight, it was a statement. Stafford wasn't just playing for wins, he was playing to prove that he could endure anything. Over the next few seasons, he continued to battle through injuries, including a broken finger, a separated shoulder, and even a dislocated knee. Yet, through it all, he never missed a start due to injury until 2019, a testament to his toughness and durability. But physical pain was only part of the challenge. Stafford also had to carry the weight of a franchise that hadn't won a playoff game in over 2 decades. In 2011, Stafford finally broke through, leading the Lions to their first playoff appearance in 12 years. It was a season for the ages as he threw for over 5,000 yards and 41 touchdowns, forming one of the most dynamic duos in NFL history with Calvin Johnson. Megatron, as Johnson was known, was a generational talent, but even he couldn't do it alone. It was Stafford's ability to stay calm under pressure, to make the right throws in the biggest moments, that gave the Lions a fighting chance. Together, they brought hope to a city that had long been starved for success. But hope can be a fragile thing. Despite Stafford's heroics, the Lions' playoff run ended in disappointment, and the team soon returned to its losing ways. Year after year, Stafford found himself in the same position, fighting to keep his team afloat, only to fall short in the end. Critics began to label him as a stat patter, a quarterback who put up big numbers but couldn't win when it mattered. It was a narrative that followed him for years, one that ignored the countless times he had willed his team to victory against impossible odds. Through it all, Stafford never lost his edge. He continued to play with the same fire, the same determination that had defined him since his rookie year. Whether it was leading a fourth-quarter comeback or playing through pain, Stafford always found a way to keep going. But as the losses piled up, even his resilience was tested. How long could one man carry the weight of an entire franchise? How much more could he endure before it became too much? The answer came in 2021, when Stafford was traded to the Los Angeles Rams. It was a fresh start, a chance to prove that he was more than just a good quarterback on a bad team. And prove it he did. In his very first season with the Rams, Stafford led the team to a Super Bowl victory, finally silencing his critics and cementing his legacy as one of the toughest quarterbacks in NFL history. But before we get to that triumphant moment, let's take a closer look at the challenges Stafford faced in Detroit, the moments that tested his mental toughness like never before. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Matthew Stafford's incredible journey, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Because when it comes to mental toughness, Stafford's story is just getting started. The 2011 season was a turning point for Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions. After years of rebuilding and heartbreak, the team finally found its stride, thanks in large part to Stafford's breakout performance. Throwing for over 5,000 yards and 41 touchdowns, he became just the 4th quarterback in NFL history to reach that milestone. But it wasn't just the numbers that made this season special, it was the way Stafford elevated his team, turning a perennial loser into a playoff contender. For the first time in over a decade, the Lions had hope, and it was Stafford who carried them there. At the heart of this resurgence was Stafford's connection with Calvin Johnson, one of the most dominant wide receivers the game has ever seen. Together, they formed a partnership that struck fear into opposing defenses. Johnson's freakish athleticism and Stafford's pinpoint accuracy made them nearly unstoppable. In one unforgettable game against the Dallas Cowboys, Stafford orchestrated a game-winning drive that ended with a fake spike and a touchdown pass, showcasing his ability to think on his feet and deliver under pressure. It was moments like these that solidified Stafford's reputation as a clutch performer, a quarterback who could rise to the occasion when it mattered most. But even as Stafford reached new heights, the challenges kept coming. The Lions' defense was often a liability, forcing Stafford to play from behind in countless games. Yet, time and time again, he found a way to keep his team in the fight. In 2016, Stafford set an NFL record with 8 fourth-quarter comebacks, a testament to his ability to stay calm under pressure. Whether it was a perfectly timed throw or a gutsy scramble, Stafford always seemed to find a way to get the job done. It was this relentless determination that earned him the respect of his teammates and opponents alike. Despite his individual success, the Lions' playoff struggles continued to haunt Stafford in 2014. The team made its second postseason appearance under his leadership, only to fall victim to a controversial no call on a pass interference penalty that cost them the game. It was a heartbreaking loss, one that left fans wondering if Stafford would ever get the chance to prove himself on the biggest stage. But even in the face of disappointment, Stafford never wavered. He continued to play with the same intensity, the same drive that had defined his career from the beginning. As the years went by, the narrative around Stafford began to shift. No longer was he just a good quarterback on a bad team. He was a leader, a warrior, someone who refused to give up no matter how dire the circumstances. His toughness became legendary, whether it was playing through a broken back or leading his team to victory with a dislocated finger. But as the losses piled up, even Stafford's resilience was tested. How much longer could he keep fighting? How much more could he endure before it became too much? The answer would come in 2021. When Stafford was traded to the Los Angeles Rams, it was a fresh start. A chance to prove that he was more than just a good quarterback on a bad team, and prove it he did. In his very first season with the Rams, Stafford led the team to a Super Bowl victory, finally silencing his critics and cementing his legacy as one of the toughest quarterbacks in NFL history. But before we get to that triumphant moment, let's take a closer look at the challenges Stafford faced in Detroit, the moments that tested his mental toughness like never before. What would it take for Stafford to finally break through? How would his years of adversity prepare him for the ultimate test? The answers lie in the heart of Los Angeles, where Stafford's journey from underdog to champion reached its climax. For all the moments of brilliance and resilience, Matthew Stafford's time in Detroit was also marked by frustration and heartbreak. Despite his individual success, the Lions' inability to build a competitive team around him became a recurring theme. Year after year, Stafford found himself in the same position, carrying the weight of a franchise that seemed perpetually stuck in neutral. The losses piled up, and with them came the criticism. Analysts questioned whether Stafford was truly elite, labeling him as a quarterback who could put up big numbers but couldn't win when it mattered most. It was a narrative that followed him like a shadow, one that ignored the countless times he had willed his team to victory against impossible odds. Injuries continued to plague Stafford, testing his physical and mental limits. In 2018, he missed half the season with a back injury, and the following year, he played through a fractured bone in his back. Despite the pain, Stafford never complained. He simply suited up and played, embodying the toughness that had defined his career from the beginning. But even his resilience had its limits. The toll of carrying a struggling franchise began to wear on him, and by 2020, it was clear that something had to change. The Lions were in the midst of another losing season, and Stafford, now in his 30s, knew that his window for success was closing. The breaking point came in 2020 when Stafford's wife, Kelly, underwent a 12-hour surgery to remove a brain tumor. It was a harrowing experience, one that put football into perspective. For the first time in his career, Stafford had to confront the possibility that there were more important things than the game. Yet, even in the face of personal adversity, He continued to play, leading the Lions with the same determination and grit that had defined his career. But as the losses mounted, it became clear that Stafford needed a fresh start, a chance to prove that he could win on the biggest stage. In January 2021, Stafford made the difficult decision to request a trade. It wasn't an easy choice. Detroit was the only team he had ever known, the city where he had started a family and built a legacy. But after 12 years of fighting for a franchise that couldn't seem to get out of its own way, Stafford knew it was time to move on. The Lions granted his request, trading him to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for Jared Goff and multiple draft picks. It was a bittersweet moment, one that marked the end of an era in Detroit and the beginning of a new chapter in Stafford's career. As Stafford packed his bags and headed to Los Angeles, the weight of expectations followed him. The Rams were a team built to win now, with a star-studded roster and a championship or bust mentality. For Stafford, it was the opportunity he had been waiting for, a chance to prove that he was more than just a good quarterback on a bad team. But the pressure was immense. The Rams had given up a king's ransom to acquire him, and anything less than a Super Bowl would be considered a failure. Could Stafford rise to the occasion? Or would the weight of expectations prove too much to bear? The answer would come in the most dramatic fashion imaginable, as Stafford led the Rams on a playoff run for the ages. But before we get to that triumphant moment, let's take a closer look at the challenges Stafford faced in his final years in Detroit. The moments that tested his mental toughness like never before. What would it take for Stafford to finally break through? How would his years of adversity prepare him for the ultimate test? The answers lie in the heart of Los Angeles, where Stafford's journey from underdog to champion reached its climax. The trade to the Los Angeles Rams in 2021 was more than just a fresh start for Matthew Stafford. It was a chance at redemption. For over a decade, he had carried the weight of a struggling franchise, battling injuries, criticism, and countless fourth-quarter deficits. Now, with a team built to win, Stafford had the opportunity to prove that he was more than just a good quarterback. The Rams were all in, and so was Stafford. From the moment he stepped onto the field in Los Angeles, it was clear that something special was brewing. The 2021 season was a revelation for Stafford. Surrounded by elite talent like Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and Jalen Ramsey, he flourished in Sean McVay's high-powered offense, throwing for over 4,800 yards and 41 touchdowns. Stafford led the Rams to a 12-win season and a division title. But it wasn't just the stats that stood out, it was the way he elevated his team in the biggest moments. Time and time again, Stafford delivered clutch performances, proving that he could thrive under pressure. The narrative that had followed him for years, that he couldn't win when it mattered, was slowly beginning to crumble. The playoffs were where Stafford truly shined. In the wild card round, he outdueled Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals, throwing for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in a dominant victory. The following week, he faced his toughest test yet: Tom Brady and the defending champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In a game that will be remembered as one of the greatest comebacks in NFL history, Stafford led the Rams from a 24-point deficit to a thrilling 30-point victory. It was a performance that showcased his mental toughness, his ability to stay calm under pressure, and his unwavering belief in his team. But the defining moment of Stafford's career came in the NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers. Trailing by 10 points in the fourth quarter, Stafford orchestrated a game-winning drive that culminated in a touchdown pass to Cooper Kupp. It was a moment of pure magic, a testament to Stafford's ability to rise to the occasion when it mattered most. For the first time in his career, he was headed to the Super Bowl, and the weight of years of adversity seemed to lift from his shoulders. Super Bowl 56 was the ultimate test of Stafford's resilience. Facing Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, Stafford delivered a performance for the ages. Throwing for over 283 yards and 3 touchdowns, he led the Rams to a thrilling 23-point victory. The game-winning drive, capped by a touchdown pass to Cooper Kupp, was the culmination of everything Stafford had worked for. After years of heartbreak and disappointment, He had finally reached the pinnacle of the sport. The narrative that had haunted him for so long that he couldn't win when it mattered was finally put to rest. As Stafford hoisted the Lombardi Trophy, it was impossible not to reflect on the journey that had brought him here. From the depths of Detroit's struggles to the heights of NFL glory, Stafford's story was one of perseverance, resilience, and unshakable mental toughness. But even as he celebrated his greatest triumph, one question remained: what would come next for the quarterback who had finally silenced his critics? The answer would come in the years that followed, as Stafford continued to build on his legacy and inspire a new generation of players. What does it take to overcome a lifetime of adversity? How does a player rise above the doubters and prove that they belong among the greats? The answers lie in the heart of Matthew Stafford's journey, a journey that's far from over. But before we look ahead, let's take a moment to reflect on the lessons we can all learn from Stafford's incredible story. If you've made it this far into the story of Matthew Stafford's incredible journey, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because this is where it all comes together: a tale of resilience, redemption, and the unbreakable spirit of a quarterback who refused to give up. Stafford's story isn't just about football. It's about the power of perseverance, the strength to keep going when everything seems stacked against you, and the belief that no matter how many times you fall, you can always rise again. From his early days in Detroit, where he carried the weight of a struggling franchise on his shoulders, to his triumphant Super Bowl victory with the Rams, Stafford's journey is a masterclass in mental toughness. He faced injuries, criticism, and countless setbacks, but through it all, he never lost sight of his goal. His ability to stay calm under pressure, to make the right throws in the biggest moments, and to lead his team with unwavering determination is what sets him apart. Stafford's story is a reminder that greatness isn't just about talent, it's about heart, grit, and the refusal to quit. But perhaps the most inspiring part of Stafford's journey is what it teaches us about overcoming adversity. Life, like football, is full of challenges. There will be moments when the odds seem insurmountable, when the weight of expectations feels too heavy to bear. But Stafford's story shows us that it's possible to rise above those challenges, to turn setbacks into comebacks, and to achieve greatness in the face of adversity. His journey is a testament to the power of resilience, a reminder that no matter how tough the road may be, the destination is worth the fight. As we reflect on Stafford's career, it's impossible not to feel a sense of awe. Here is a man who endured years of hardship, who faced criticism and doubt at every turn, and yet never wavered in his belief in himself. His Super Bowl victory wasn't just a personal triumph, it was a victory for everyone who has ever been told they weren't good enough, for everyone who has ever been counted out. Stafford's story is a beacon of hope, a reminder that with enough determination and heart, anything is possible. So, what do you think? Is mental toughness the most important trait for an athlete? Or is it something more? Let us know in the comments below. And if you've been inspired by Stafford's journey, don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a little motivation. Because at the end of the day, Stafford's story isn't just about football. It's about the power of the human spirit to overcome, to endure, and to triumph. And that's a story worth telling.